You like teenage girls. When you say teenage, how old are we talking?
And have you done anything wrong?
Lots of things wrong.
Audio Jungle. Against her will.
We went from seeing you or talking to you daily or weekly to not seeing you in 2 years.
Kelly was physically and emotionally abusive. We were required to call him daddy.
You're killing me, man! This is not about music!
Hi friends, how are you guys today? I hope you guys are all having an amazing day so far. If you're not having an amazing day, I really hope that your day gets better from here on out. My name is Shanda and welcome to my channel, you guys. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you enjoy this video. If you don't enjoy it, I hope that you at least find it informative or at least give it a chance. And if you guys are returning to my channel, thank you guys so much for returning to my channel. It really means a lot to me and I really appreciate it. So today we are going to do the R. Kelly trial. Last week I did a video on R. Kelly and his charges and everything, but that was before the trial started. So, well, no, it was right after the trial started. So today we are going to focus on some witness testimonies. I have been doing my homework, you guys. I have been researching and reading everything I can get my hands on, the court documents and reporters, and talking to different reporters who were there. I've been doing a lot of homework on this for you guys, and I have testimony from everybody who testified so far, but it is going to be a very long video, so we're going to break it up into pieces, and today we are going to focus on the opening statements from the prosecution and from the defense, and we're just going to start from the beginning, and then we're going to focus on Jerhonda Pace, her testimony. She is Jane Doe number 4. She was the first to testify. She was their first witness, and then we're going to go over Chris McGrath's testimony. Now, Chris McGrath is R. Kelly's longtime doctor and friend. That's all we're going to do today, and the next video we are going to focus on Azriel Clary's testimony. She was on the witness stand for like 2 or 3 days, so it's going to be, her testimony is pretty long. We'll focus on hers, and if we have time in the next video, we'll do Demetrius Smith's testimony as well. So why don't you guys sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and get into these testimonies. Okay, you guys, so the trial started on August 18th. That is when opening statements started. So let's go ahead and start with the prosecution. Their opening statement was given by Assistant U.S. Attorney Maria Cruz, and she came out swinging, you guys. She came out swinging. She was ready, and she said, quote, "This case is about a predator. A man who for decades used his fame, popularity, and network of people at his disposal to target, groom, and exploit girls, boys, and young women for his own sexual gratification." Before we go any further, you guys, I do want to put a trigger warning in right here. Sometimes I forget to put trigger warnings in, but I want to put a trigger warning in for you guys because this video is going to have a lot of gross details in it. There's a lot about sexual stuff and sexual assault, grooming, battery, weird fetishes, and weird like punishment, just weird stuff. So here is your trigger warning right here. If you guys don't want to see anything like that, just go ahead and click off the video right now. But if you're ready, let's start riding this roller coaster. All right, the man, the defendant, Robert Sylvester Kelly, more commonly known as R. Kelly, started collecting girls and women like they were things, hoarding them like they were objects. This case is not about a celebrity who likes to party a lot or about the defendant's sexual preferences. The sexual conduct at issue in this case is illegal. R. Kelly and his crew shared a common purpose of achieving the objectives of the enterprise, which R. Kelly is the CEO and the godfather of. The objectives are to prop music and his brand while bringing women and girls into illegal sexual activity. She went on about how these girls were not permitted to use the bathroom. They were required to wear baggy clothes when they were not accompanying R. Kelly unless otherwise instructed by him. So if he didn't say not to wear baggy clothes, they had to wear baggy clothes all the time. They couldn't go to the bathroom. They couldn't eat. When they even testified, when they go into an elevator, they have to, once those doors close in the elevator, the girls have to turn around and face the wall. They can't speak or make eye contact with anyone. They're not allowed to speak with anyone ever, and they have to look down if they're spoken to. A lot of rules. So she went on about those rules for a while, and then she talked about one night in 1994 before R. Kelly went on stage. His associate told him she was pregnant. Now they're talking about Aaliyah, Jane Doe number 1. If she was pregnant, there would be questions. At the top of those questions would be, who is the father? So they described how R. Kelly went to Chicago, and him and his associates, they committed bribery, getting these forged marriage licenses and this forged ID to get the marriage license. They then described in great detail the hotel, the view of the hotel, the matching jogging suits that him and Aaliyah wore, and everything about the wedding. She said as soon as they were done getting married, he went right back on tour. And so that was pretty much what the prosecution talked about. Okay, so now it is the defense's turn, and Nicole Blank Becker is the attorney who made the opening statement for the defense. Now, she said, she came out and said, quote, "Such consistent patterns are in fact signs that the witnesses are unreliable. They were trying to poke a lot of holes in all the witnesses' stories that the jury is going to hear. They said a lot of these accusations are straight made up because they know those get good media play." So she is already trying to say that all of the women that are going to testify are just out here for media play. They're trying to get their name out there. They're trying to get big in the media. So that is his defense right there, evidently. Nicole's opening statement was over 2 hours long. It was so long that the judge actually stopped her and recessed for lunch during the middle of her opening statement. And during her opening statement as well, that is also when R. Kelly fell asleep. So like if you guys heard that he fell asleep in court, that is when he fell asleep, was during his defense attorney's opening statement. She said, quote, "Many of the sexual relationships with Kelly were consensual," end quote. Many? Not all of them, I guess? Okay. How much is he paying these lawyers? Because that was a really bad mistake. Okay, she said, quote, "All of their stories and explanations will sound kind of similar, using those buzzwords like they couldn't eat, it was a cult. That is audience grabbing. There will be a lot of untruths told to you that even the government won't be able to untangle that web of lies. Witnesses will tell you all these negative things, that they are going to form a picture that basically R. Kelly is a monster. Some of these relationships that Kelly had were beautiful." She then said, "Many of these rules that Kelly supposedly forced his accusers to follow have benign explanations." She said the women wore baggy clothes because they didn't want to attract harassment at R. Kelly's concerts. And they urinated in cups not because they were denied permission, but because they were often on long tour trips in a van with no restroom. Oh, hold on. R. Kelly is like a world-renowned global R&B artist. He's known as like the king of R&B. You're telling me that his tour bus doesn't have a bathroom? I don't buy it. But whatever. Maybe the girls aren't on the tour bus. Maybe they're in a van following the tour bus. I don't know. Which, even if, I'm sure they can stop to. But what you also hear from all the witness testimonies, it's not while they're on the road that they had to pee in a cup. It was when they were locked up in the studios. But anyway, moving on. My nose itches so bad. Okay. She then said, quote, "So peeing in a cup, yeah, you might hear that. It's not illegal, ladies and gentlemen." End quote. Okay. She said a lot of his romantic relationships have a positive track record. Even when they ended, they remain friends. She then said he did not transport the girls across state lines for illicit sex. R. Kelly is a very busy man who works on the road all the time and often has to bring his romantic partners to him. She said his relationships with the Jane Does were consensual. They knew what they were getting into. End quote. Okay. So those, pretty much that is the opening statements for the prosecution and the defense. So let's start with Jerhonda Pace. Let's start with her testimony. Jerhonda Pace is the first witness, and she is pregnant. She's very much pregnant. She looks like she's going to have her baby any day, and I'm thinking they probably had her be the first witness and do her testimony first because they wanted to get her testimony done and out of the way before she had her baby. Like, what if she has her baby and then she can't, so they wanted to get her testimony out of the way. So she's the first witness. Okay, so Jerhonda Pace first started her testimony about how she met R. Kelly. So she said that in 2008, when R. Kelly was on trial for his child pornography charges for the tape that he made that he got caught with when he was peeing on that 14-year-old girl whose name, let's not say her name, but yes, he was on trial and she was a fan. She was supporting him, and she was outside the courtroom or outside the courthouse every day supporting R. Kelly. And she would skip school to stand outside the courtroom all day and support him. She was 14, going on 15 at the time. She would always stand out there, and R. Kelly started to notice her, and he would tell her things like, "Thank you for your support." And one time she told him that her birthday was coming up, and he told her happy early birthday. So she ended up getting invited to one of his parties in the spring of 2009. Later, she was asked over privately. He told her to bring a bathing suit. She told him that she was 19, but she was not 19. She was 16 years old. She said, quote, "He sat down on the lawn chair. He told me to walk back and forth and remove a piece of my clothing each time. Once she was fully nude, he grabbed her and started kissing her. He then picked her up and took her into the game room. There he performed oral sex on her. This was at his mansion at the suburban Olympia Fields. So her and R. Kelly had sexual contact when she was only 16 years old, but she met him when she was 14 going on 15. Their first time having sexual contact, she was 16, but she did lie to him and tell him she was 19. So that can be his defense. She told me she was 19. I thought she was 19. And she admitted on the stand that she did lie and tell him she was 19. After he performed oral sex on her, she felt uncomfortable and she decided to show him her state ID. She lied to him, told him she was of age. She wasn't of age. They ended up doing sexual things, so she felt uncomfortable and she wanted to tell him that she wasn't really 19. So she showed him her ID, which said she was 16 years old. He looked at the ID, and then he looked at her, and he said, quote, "What is this supposed to mean?" End quote. He told her to just continue telling people she was 19, but he wanted her to act like she was 21. He told her he would, quote, "train her on how to please him." Ew. She said, quote, "He took my virginity." So it began 6 months of repeated sexual contact. It escalated to instances of abuse and control. Jerhonda Pace was eventually given a hefty payout for her silence, and this helps prove the hush payments to further prove the criminal enterprise that he is being charged with. So him paying her to be quiet about her experience with him, that is further proving that the enterprise exists and that he did issue hush payments to his victims, his survivors. I'm sorry, excuse me. Right after they had their first sexual encounter, R. Kelly made a drink and he called it sex in the kitchen. She started to feel bad and she just fell asleep, and someone on his entourage then gave her $50 when she woke up and told her that someone would take her to the train. She said the girls were not able to leave their rooms. She said she had to wear baggy clothes and she had to call him daddy. She had to stand up and kiss him when he entered a room, and if she disagreed with him, he would slap her. He would almost always film their sexual encounters. Then he would make her watch it afterwards and he would critique her performance. She ultimately contracted herpes from him. So, I mean, we all know that R. Kelly was diagnosed with genital herpes. He's had it for a very, very long time. I think as early as 2000. And he did pass this on, unfortunately, to several young girls. And Jerhonda Pace was one of them. So she ultimately did contract herpes from him. Then the prosecutors asked her if she remembered her last night in the mansion. Her voice got quiet and she said, "Yes, I do. It was January 2010. She said she was preoccupied texting her friend, so she did not realize that R. Kelly had walked into the room. So when she did not get up to greet him, he became angry. She then told him she was texting a friend, and that's why she didn't realize he entered the rooms, and he got super mad. He slapped her. He then choked her until she passed out. When she came to, he spit on her face and directed her to give him oral sex. Oh, God. R. Kelly's attorney said that, quote, "Jerhonda's lies was like a snowball of lies that keeps getting bigger. She said, I can't even count as high as the number of untruths, stories you're going to hear from Jerhonda Pace on the stand. The proverbial word groupie is an understatement. You'll see when it comes to her. She had this magnificent relationship with R. Kelly until it was time to write a book, because Jerhonda Pace did write a book, which she made, I think, about $25,000 from that book. So they're using that to say that, she's just saying these things to write this book. She said the girls enjoy being with him and they monetarily benefited from the association with R. Kelly. One of his defenses is that, of course, all of the girls are capitalizing and making money off of their experiences with R. Kelly, so that's a big thing he's going to be using in this trial. A few of them had written books. They did television appearances, and just the fame that they are getting from their experiences with R. Kelly, or being one of his survivors, I guess. That's a big part of his defense, that they are just getting fame and money from saying they're a survivor of his. Continuing on, Jerhonda Pace got back on the stand the next day. She then said that R. Kelly wanted her to put her hair up in pigtails and dress like a Girl Scout when they would have sex. And of course, he recorded it. The prosecutors asked her to read an entry out of her journal. The entry recounted was on January 23rd, 2010. This was the last day she was in the mansion. She ended up breaking down on the stand. She started crying. She asked to use the bathroom. Her voice was really shaky, but she eventually spoke, and she said, quote, "I went to Rob's house and he called me silly. He called me a silly bitch. Rob slapped me 3 times and said if I lied to him again, it wasn't going to be an open hand next time. He spit in my face and in my mouth. He choked me. I had sex with him. I had oral sex with him. I became fed up. I went home and I confessed." End quote. So I am guessing she went home and confessed to her parents what had been going on. That's what I took from that. His defense then started their cross-examination of Jerhonda, and they portrayed her as a starry-eyed R. Kelly superfan who turned on him for the money and fame. They asked her straight out, "Are you a groupie? Are you a stalker?" They then asked her about her lying about her age to him and saying she was 19. She said she became uncomfortable after they had their sexual encounter, and she realized she had lied to him, so she then told him her real age. R. Kelly's defense said, quote, "Well, you weren't uncomfortable enough to say I'm not taking my clothes off. You weren't that uncomfortable to say, oh, hell no," end quote. His defense then started talking to her about how she wanted to remain friends with him after everything that he supposedly did to her. They said, after all of this, you got lawyers, after the payment you got from him, you still wanted to be friends again. So you were still trying to get the relationship back into gear again. And Jerhonda answers with, yes, that is correct. So, I mean, she didn't seem to sway too much on the stand. She didn't seem to get too rattled by the defense and their questions. But after she spoke on the stand that same day, Jerhonda Pace's sister came out the day she testified, right after court. She came out publicly and said Jerhonda was a liar, a manipulator. She said that she doesn't excuse anything R. Kelly did, but she just completely threw her sister under the bus completely and said that she was not credible, and she just completely bashed her. This is what her sister said exactly. She said, "I'm not making excuses for R. Kelly. However, I will only speak on Jerhonda Pace, whom is my sister that I no longer have ties to due to her continuously being manipulative, deceitful, and unashamed of the mockery she puts out personally against me and members of our family." Jerhonda was obsessed with R. Kelly for years. She stalked him and lied about her age to get near him with the goal of obtaining money, attention, and fame. Our family, for years, tried placing her on the right path, but she had her mind made up since a young teen that she was, quote, in love with him, and that was that. It is not fair for other members of our family to be mocked and ridiculed with her claims that no one cared about her and that she apparently had some awful childhood. No one could tell her anything, and that is the honest truth. When I was younger, I continuously supported her despite finding many inconsistencies in the things she said, even as a young child. And as a teen, however, I wanted to believe her and didn't ever question her. Unfortunately, it took me getting into my 20s to realize the many lies she spread and to be able to see past the fact she was my sister, but that she was a mentally sick person that will lie on any and everyone to avoid taking accountability and find something to gain. I am only here to set the record straight on our family and make it clear from a direct insider. We had no parts and want no parts either. Thank you. Best of luck to her and others. She then wrote again and said, I've kept silent for the most part out of respect for our family. However, even I eventually have a limit, especially when lies are being spewed in regards to subject matter that is extremely sensitive and private to me. Jerhonda Pace is one of my younger sisters, and although it brings me no enjoyment to have to come out against her, right is right and wrong is wrong. Her testifying in the courts against R. Kelly is her right, but lying about certain things and especially bringing up my deceased daughter, whom is currently still being mourned, was extremely distasteful and unacceptable. My childhood deserves to be able to rest. My child deserves to be able to rest in peace. I do not appreciate having to relieve trauma due to her trying to garnish sympathy from the press because she chose to live a lie and not take accountability for her actions. Side note, to make it clear, I am not in agreement to things R. Kelly has allegedly done, but I will defend myself and my family. Okay, really quick, I must have forgot to put this in my notes or something, but Jerhonda was on the stand. She was talking about how R. Kelly would take her phone from her, and he took her phone and he wouldn't give it back, or he was deleting everything off of it or something like that. And she said it wasn't until she told him that her phone had pictures of her niece, her late niece that had passed. And it wasn't until then he gave her her phone back. And that is what she said on the stand, and I don't really know how her sister would know that this was a lie. I don't know. I mean, she wasn't there. I mean, it's not like she said other things. I don't know. But that's what she said on the stand, so I'm not really sure what is going on, but I do know that her sister has known everything that she has said for a long time. She even wrote a book. And she chose that day to come out against her sister. She knew she was going to testify against him. She knew she wrote a book. She knew her whole story this whole time. And she chose that day that she testified to come out against her right after she testified. It seems a little fishy to me. And if you look over here, she hashtagged R. Kelly and hashtag Jerhonda Pace. Just seems a little fishy to me. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's a little odd. Okay, so that is Jerhonda Pace's testimony, and that is what her sister said about her. Let's go ahead and get into Chris McGrath and his testimony. Okay, so next we're going to talk about is Chris McGrath. He is R. Kelly's longtime doctor and friend. He got on the stand, he testified, he said that he did diagnose R. Kelly with herpes, and he advised him to tell his sexual partners and to have safe sex. Now, he said that R. Kelly told him in 2000, he came in with like bumps all over his genital region, and he told his doctor that he was wearing leather pants with no underwear for a photo shoot the day before. And the doctor kind of bought it a little bit and was like, okay, maybe it's not herpes or whatever. But the doctor also said that he did the herpes test for R. Kelly, and it came back negative. But he said during the time he did the test, there was still room for it to be herpes. He never did a test again after that, but he had been prescribing him herpes medication, specifically Valtrex, for a long time, and that worked every time, and that was helping the outbreak, so he knew it was herpes. So there's not exactly a direct diagnosis and exactly this is when he was diagnosed. So the defense is using that and trying to like get around it, like, well, he didn't know for sure he had it and he wasn't diagnosed during this time. So that's what the defense is doing. But so the doctor said that R. Kelly used to pick up his herpes medication at the Rock and Roll Walgreens. They got their nickname because it is close to the Rock and Roll McDonald's that R. Kelly used a lot to meet girls and even young boys. I find this incredibly disgusting because he is literally picking up his herpes medication and then going across the street to the McDonald's and picking up more unsuspecting young girls and even boys right after picking up his medication. Like, I don't know if it's right after, but come on, like, it's right across the street. Like, I can just imagine like picking up your herpes medication and then going across the street to the McDonald's and meeting more unsuspecting young girls and boys. I mean, what the hell? Okay. So this doctor testifies that he was a friend up until these recent legal troubles. So around 2019, when R. Kelly was getting all this bad press. So he basically said he was a longtime friend of R. Kelly until 2019 when he started getting all this bad press, and now he's not his friend. Okay. The doctor said that R. Kelly did not pay for his medical services ever. He said that R. Kelly paid him in concert tickets and invited him to parties at R. Kelly's mansion. R. Kelly would also invite the doctor to his studio to listen to new music and stuff like that, and that's how he paid him. The doctor never made him pay for his medical services, and the doctor is actually in a little bit of trouble right now, and it's because of his testimony, basically saying he didn't make him pay for anything and stuff like that. So he's probably gonna get in a little bit of trouble. But he said that he ended his friendship in 2019, and he was very, very clear about that on the stand, that he ended his friendship in 2019 when he started getting all this bad press, and that's when he ended it with him. Put his foot down about that. He said R. Kelly was worried that he had chlamydia. So the doctor ordered a test for chlamydia, and it was negative, but he also decided to test him for gonorrhea at the same time, and that was positive. So he had then advised him again to practice safe sex. He wanted to order more tests, and R. Kelly told him no because of privacy reasons. So he not only has herpes, but he has gonorrhea, he thought he had chlamydia, and who knows what else he's had. And he is having unsafe sex with all of these girls and not telling them. Like, nasty ass. Nasty ass. The prosecution showed records from June 5th, 2000. Now, this was where R. Kelly had blisters on his genitals. R. Kelly said that he wore the leather pants without the underwear. I already told you guys that. The doctor said that he knew it was herpes, though, because of all the symptoms that he were having was the same as herpes. He tested him for the herpes. It came back negative, but he said that it still could have been herpes because of the timing of the test. But he said he still could not rule out a herpes diagnosis because of the timing of the test, even though it was negative. Later, he was diagnosed with herpes later on, but there is actually no diagnosis in any of the records. That's probably another reason why he's in a little bit of trouble. There's no diagnosis in any of his medical records that he actually has herpes, but the doctor says that he knew he had herpes, and he's known for a long time. He's been prescribing him this herpes medication, Valtrex, for a very long time, but he never actually put the diagnosis in any of the medical records ever, so they can't like pinpoint when he was exactly diagnosed with it. R. Kelly also responded. He said R. Kelly responded very well to Valtrex, which is a medication for the virus herpes, and he said that's also how he knew that he had herpes, because he was not only had all the symptoms, but he was responding very well to herpes medication. So now comes the cross-examination. The defense decided that they were going to challenge the diagnosis. So they challenged the diagnosis, and the defense later asked the doctor about the diagnosis because the test came back negative, and the doctor, I guess, didn't write it in the records, like I said, and so there's no diagnosis on paper, none. So that is why the defense was asking about it in court. They're trying to get around this. But they did have a herpes prescription that goes all the way back to 2007. So they can pretty much say from at least 2007. And the doctor said that he first came in with the blisters in 2000. So that's a long time, but at least from 2007, which is 2 years before Jerhonda Pace started having symptoms. The prosecution asked if there was any doubt in his mind that R. Kelly had herpes, and he said no. The defense team started trying to push back on the doctor, saying that Valtrex can be used for other things, such as cold sores, types of shingles, and something else like that. And the doctor ended up getting frustrated. They were going back and forth, and they were talking about shingles and cold sores and chickenpox, and the doctor's like, well, they're all forms of herpes. And then he started getting really upset, and this is when the doctor yelled on the stand, herpes, herpes, herpes. Like, okay, so that is when, because if you read the stuff, you can read everywhere that the doctor ended up yelling herpes, herpes, herpes on the stand. That is why they were arguing about the different types of herpes, and he was like, well, that's herpes too, and so is that, and that's herpes, and herpes, herpes, herpes. Okay, whatever. The doctor said on the stand that he was getting out of town immediately. He said that this was the only time that he would be in town, and he's scared, and he's only in town for testifying today, and you better ask him everything you want to ask him, because after he gets off the stand, he is immediately getting out of town, and he is not coming back. And he said this on the stand, and that is probably not good, because that probably shows the jury that, yeah, this probably is racketeering. There probably is a criminal enterprise behind this, because the doctor is scared. He was forced to testify. He didn't want to testify. He was actually forced to do so, and he couldn't perjure himself. He was scared to perjure himself, so he feels like R. Kelly's entourage is going to come after him, so he's afraid. And he did say that he was getting out of town as soon as he gets off the stand, and oddly, right after his testimony in court that day, he was doxxed completely. His home address, his office address, work address, his phone number, everything he was completely doxxed. And it's just weird that he said that on the stand, that he's getting out of town, he's afraid, and then right after that he was completely doxxed. I mean, that shows to me that there is some sort of that shows to me that there is some sort of criminal enterprise behind this, because, I mean, obviously somebody in his entourage doxed this doctor, and he is saying all this stuff about how his funds are depleted, he doesn't have any money left, and then he said that he was upset that his fellow celebrity friends didn't help him out financially after he said that he didn't have any money. I am calling bull. I call bull. I don't believe it at all. And let me tell you why. Everybody knows that everybody on his entourage does all this crap for a paycheck, right? That's what everybody does anything for, is money. If there's no money to be made, and he has no more money, he can't pay his goons anymore, there's no money to be made, why would they still be doing this? Why would they still be doxing the witnesses and intimidating people? I think that that's crap. There's got to be more money. He has more money somewhere. So the doctor is scared, and he told him, like, I'm leaving town. He left town after his testimony was done, and nobody knows where he is. But the fact that he was doxxed definitely tells me that there is some sort of enterprise at work here. I mean, there's got to be. Okay, you guys, so that was everything in this video. That was the doctor's testimony, that was Jerhonda Pace's testimony, and the opening statements. So that's everything in this video. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It helps so much. And in the next video, we'll get into Azriel Clary's testimony, which is really bad. That one is real bad. And we will also get into Demetrius Smith's testimony, which has a lot to do with Aaliyah, and we'll talk about that as well in the next video, and I will be putting that out immediately after this one. I'm doing them as fast as I can. So yeah, and if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It helps so much, and if you guys definitely can leave me a comment. I love hearing your thoughts and opinions about everything that we talk about on this channel. So if you want to leave me a comment down below, I would love to hear what you guys think about all of this. And if you guys are not subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. You know you want to. I would love to have you guys in the family. And click that bell so you get all notifications and you don't miss anything that I post. And until next time, you guys, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind to each other. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.